and we will start our presentation now.
I wish it was Lawrence Welk days and there was all sorts of bubbles around me as I started to talk. That was my attempt at a joke tonight, guys. Come on. Probably half of the people here don't understand what I'm saying at all, including Nikki. So a warm welcome and a warmer even thank you for joining us this evening. I'm trying to stay in the focus and of our online participants here. So we're going to try to ensure that all of our participants are able to be seen by the people online. And so if we kind of stay in this area, that's the reason. I would like to, first of all, give thanks to Creator for this beautiful, beautiful day and for the opportunity for us to sit and listen and to hear from all of you, our membership, as well as to learn. So tonight is night 2 of a series of 12 where we're going to be discussing different topics. And just for those who didn't participate last night and weren't able to, we talked more last night as in what we have done as a council and what our model of governance is currently and how it's evolving as we hear more from the people. What we expect from the next few sessions, well, all of the sessions that we have, is an update or where things are at now and to hear more from us in order to be able to move forward with truly what our community and what our nation feels and thinks and how you want us to proceed. So tonight, the topic is education. And education, we have heard, is our buffalo. But education has been with us since time immemorial. This was going on last night also. Okay. And so we talked last night about what our concept is as a governance table, and that's mio pomotsuen. And that means the good life and the inherent right we have to living a good life from birth to death. And really, it's actually from conception. And until we join our ancestors and become an ancestor ourselves, and then the cycle continues. There's no beginning, there's no end. And learning has always been part of that cycle that has no beginning and no end. And nowadays, when we think about education, we immediately think about K to 12. Maybe if we're lucky, we think about Head Start and, daycare, Head Start before that happens. And if we're truly lucky, we think about what that extra amount of education, whether it's in the trades or post-secondary, what that does to allow us to live that life where we can provide for our children and our families. So when we think about education and learning, our nation, Cowessess First Nation, retains the inherent and sovereign right to oversee all facets of education, spanning from early childhood to post-secondary levels. This includes our inherent and sovereign right to child rearing and our ability to provide for our families. The treaty right to education has been enshrined in Treaties 1 to 7, which the Crown duty of fairness extends this right to Treaties 8 to 11. The treaty right to education builds upon our inherent and sovereign rights. Since time immemorial, we as First Nations people not only lived off the land, we also learned from it. Our education systems were based on our customs, beliefs, and environment. With the introduction of Western systems, we were forced to adapt to colonial education concepts and systems that included industrial schools, residential schools, day schools, and eventually banned administered education. And all the teachers out there are going to see the wee at the bottom. That was not intended to be there. That was just seeing if you guys were listening or reading. And when I forgot to tell Corey about that, but one of our counselors said that the other counselor, that was one of the other counselors' Indian name. I don't know if that's true or not. So getting back to this is that education from a Western concept is very different than our traditional ways of knowing and learning. And what education is, if we want to use that word, or learning and knowing. Where we are today. So I'd like to introduce our counselors as well as our education committee. And then I'm basically going to remove myself, and our counselors as well as our education committee will be available for the, and I don't want to put our education committee on the spot, because I'm going to first of all state that when we were elected, we heard from the community, from our nation, wanted community voice back to our governance system, wanted our knowledge keepers, and that doesn't necessarily mean old people, but are the ones that have the knowledge to advise us and to be available to be the voice for the community and the nation. And that only makes sense. And so what we have done is reinstate our committees. And the reinstatement of our committees, we have to say, took a lot longer than we thought. And so they are now reinstated through a call-out process, asking who is interested, and then selecting and having them here with us to guide us. And we are so proud, like when we saw the amount of people that had such incredible experience and ways of knowing, well, it just, when we're asked, what makes you proud to be from Cowessess? It's the people. And the people that we have sitting here who are our education committee. I'm going to state their names, and then I'm going to allow them to be able to introduce themselves here for the education committee, as well as the counselors. And we have Curtis and Josh that maybe want to come up and grab a chair and sit beside Auntie Lois here. I guess they must have been shy. I wish they were around the table. Actually, I don't wish they were shy around the table. You all can guess or try to guess who's we. So we have as our education committee, we have Lois Delorme, who's our knowledge keeper and senior. Raise your hand, Auntie Lois. And when we give the microphone to them, what I would like you to do is to give just a brief introduction of how many years you've taught or been in the education system. So, Auntie Lois.
Oh, me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Lois Delorme. I have been in education for almost a little over 50 years, I guess. I first taught in the northern communities, which was really a good experience for me. I spent 5 years up there. And then when I got sick, I came home and I spent about 20, 25, 30 years at CCEC. And then I left there and I went to Ocean Man. I was hired as a principal for the school there. And it was quite a good learning experience for me. I picked up a lot of good skills. The people were very nice out there. And yeah, I taught from grade kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. And I did some teaching on the with the what do you call them? Practicum teachers. I also did that. I taught through the college, Southeast Regional College. I taught educational assistant programs for about 3 years. So yeah, that's been my experience, and I'm not going to tell you my age. So I spent about a little over 50 years, I guess you'd say, in the education field. Thank you anyway for listening to me.
Thank you. And next we have Nicole Bear.
Hello, Tansei, Nicole Nitsugasun, Cowessess, Ochinia. My name is Nicole Bear. I'm from Cowessess First Nation, and I've been in education professionally for 7 years now. As a teacher, I have my BEd and my inclusive ed certificate, but prior to that, I've worked with youth in a lot of different capacities, and I'm happy to be working with my nation and excited to see where it goes. Thank you.
Next we have our youth representative, Wade Lara.
Hi, my name's Wade Lara. I don't obviously have as much education experience as everybody else, but I am a certified ATV instructor, and I've been working with youth since I started in high school. It's something I enjoy to do. So when the opportunity for the education committee came up, I jumped at the chance. I personally think I have a better understanding of the youth in the community, being a youth myself. I really hope to help these kids learn and take into account everything from daycare to the school. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
Next we have Loretta Lara.
Hello, I'm Loretta Lara. I've been in education since probably about 98, 97. First in daycare, and then I think a couple of years in daycare, then the rest of that was all Head Start, working with the little ones. And I hope being a committee member, I can help more with the little ones. We need more.
Right.
Nervous. That's it.
Thank you very much. And I would like to announce Janice Thompson is unable to be here. However, she is working on her doctorate and comes with many incredible years of not only in the school system as a teacher, but also as an administrator. So she's another shining star in our education system for our nation for sure. So oh, is that me or is that Corey? Okay. Let's give a hand to our education committee. That's about 500 years, as long as we've been colonized, about 500 years of experience right there. Especially since Councillor Malcolm has been teaching us since 1907. I tell you, one of these days he's going to get me good. And next, I'm really proud of our governance team and the people that we sit around the table with and I always say that, and why do I say sit around the table? It just sounds like we do nothing. And, honestly, I wish that there was some times when we could kind of sit around the table, but and do nothing. But honestly, every single moment that we're around that table, and we are always around that table, discussing and contemplating and using it, if not for meeting purposes, then as think tank sessions. And you could put any issue on the table for us. And the trust that we have developed through these months has been through the ability to respect each other with sometimes very differing opinions. And with those differing thoughts and opinions, because we're all individuals, is becoming to those common places of how we could best work for the people as your elected servants. And, our counselor is responsible for education, and it's not just education from the Western concept that we're looking at. It's about the counselors responsible for their knowledge and their learning. And so it's not about them having degrees. It's not about them being, PhDs or whatever the case is. It's about what they know about our community and that lifelong learning. It's about their knowledge in our cultural ways. It's their love for embracing new ideas. It's about their love for our people and supporting our people with their dreams and ambitions in bettering our systems that we have on reserve, but also the reawakening of our old ways of learning and knowledge. So I would like to, first of all, introduce Joshua Osagan. Terrence?
Thank you, Chief. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank I'm kind of nervous too now, but yes, what Chief was talking about, what we want to bring into or what we're trying to convey through our education system, is to bring back our knowledge, bring back our old traditional ways of doing things within the knowledge that we had before the Western civilization came in. So with that, well, have to come back to me on this one. Sorry about that, Chief.
No problem. Thank you, Joshua. Curtis Delorme.
Good evening, everyone. I just greet you all in good faith, and hopefully everybody has nice full bellies. And yeah, so Josh kind of hits the topics on about the history of how we are as Indigenous people, right? So part of the education process is starting to show now in in a lot more communities, and that's what we want to reawaken, right? Is how our traditions bring back our identity. So that's something that we want to work, that we're pushing, and we get to learn as ourselves too. So it helps us grow as counselors and leaders for our nation. So what makes us stronger helps us be better for our members to guide. Thank you. Oh, sorry, and I greet everybody online.
And once again, as I introduced him last night, and I will forever, is the myth, the man, the legend, Counselor Malcolm.
Greetings, everyone. You think you've been around a long time, and then you get onto the education. I've been around a long time, and when I first started, I was on a education committee way back in the 1900s. I always say, I've been very fortunate to still be standing up here. I was thinking back last night, I've been in council with Chief Kenny Sparvey, rest his soul. I've been in council with Chief Terry LaValle, rest his soul. I've been in council with Chief Rook, rest his soul. And now I was in council with Cadmus, and bright young man, and now I'm in council with Chief Erica here, so I've been around a long time, and you think I should know all this stuff, but it's very good to be sitting here again trying to learn. I'm sure these well-educated people here could probably learn me something, because I deal a lot of my dealing is with common sense, and I don't get a PhD for that, but anyway, it's good, we're kind of, to me, we're kind of jumping fast here, and our committee was probably just let known maybe 2 or 3 days ago, that they're on the committee. So I feel we have to kind of get together, and meet and see where we're going and where we come from. Education to me changed a whole bunch in the since I was in school, I grew up in the boarding school, and we just learned what they wanted us to learn. Whereas nowadays, you go back and you learn your own language, and there's so many different opportunities now from when I was a youngster. So with that, I think we're gonna get there. We have a good crew here, very young people. Wade, very smart, hardworking young guy. Counselor Curtis, he's got a good education. Josh, the old girl here. It's gonna be tough on me too, but I'm sure if we sit back and meet enough, as the education committee, I think we'll get things together, and we'll continue on from there. I'm learning just as much as you are, To me, it's kind of my first day here too. Hi. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. And oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. I was nervous earlier, but yes, I want to thank the reserve for helping me get my education, CCEC for the ABA, for helping me get my grade 12 and helping me get where I'm at right now. But what we want to convey is to understand the people with kinship and kinship levels within internal and internal, and we want to bring in within land-based teachings. That's why the Buffalo want to come and help us convey within that. And give an understanding and give people understanding within character development and critical thinking, and give them an understanding of who they are and where they come from, through linear learning and abstract learning. Linear learning could be a degree, and having a degree and stuff, and abstract learning, it could be the traditional based stuff that our old people had. So that's our education on what we want to try to bring into the nation. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, dear Josh. Right on.
thank you very much, Josh. And that is such a snapshot of who we are as Cowessess, is that combination of both that formal education as well as what we have learned along the way and how we've become that knowledge keeper. And I have to say, for Councillor Malcolm, I know that he was very uncomfortable being part of the councillor responsible for education. And I don't know if that came from residential school or whatever, but when I looked at him, I saw him as the most knowledgeable person around our table, as well as one of our most important knowledge keepers and somebody to teach us around the table from our community and our nation. And he has done that for us. And we are so very grateful and thankful for that. So it doesn't matter if you have those letters behind your name or whatever the case is. Our way as Cowessess people is to appreciate each other for the knowledge that we bring, regardless of the letters and how many are behind our name. It's about what's in us. And our individual right to choose how we're going to teach others is our right and needs to be supported in whichever way that we can. So it's taking back what is considered education. It's taking back what is considered learning and reawakening exactly what learning is there as well. So I want to acknowledge that. And obviously you need some education to be able to do this. There we go. And now my part of the evening is basically over, and we're going to call up Sandy Panay Schindler, who is Cowessess's Director of Education, to introduce some department staff by name and also to give some statistics. And then we're handing it over to the counselors and the committee members if they choose to participate right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the prayer, Miss Pearl. It's beautiful to start in a good way. I'm just so happy to see, I know everybody in this room, and I've been the education director for the past 7 years, and what's that old commercial from the 70s? We've come a long way, baby. Like we've done a lot of work. I started with a committee, and I'm glad to have a committee back because I really think that community voice and direction is critical to education. And as you can see from the list of staff, they're not all here tonight, and we actually haven't even met as an education committee yet. And the plan is to have that a meeting before the end of April, in the next 2 weeks. And then at our first meeting, we'll have all of our staff in attendance to give kind of a snapshot of the services that we provide. I've listed the staff here. I'll read them out for the benefit of people who might need glasses. Like I've got these people memorized, so I don't need my glasses. But our daycare coordinator is Donna Lara. Our Head Start coordinator, the position is vacant right now. We had a resignation in the fall, but we were so happy to have Loretta and Sharon back. Such a dream team that agreed to come back. So we're happy to have our Cookums back. We have a great team at CCEC with the principal and vice principal, Natasha and Andrew. Our post-secondary education coordinator is Shelley M. Lara, and she has quite a bit of experience with LFD and other job placements. Our education office administrative assistants are Tara and Kaylee Gambler, Tara Desjardins. Our amazing bus drivers who do I think they have the hardest job, and they're our unsung heroes because they've driven through just lots of crazy weather, and they bring our precious ones to school safely and on time. We have Rosalma Haywahay. For those of you who don't know, she celebrated 50 years of bus driving last year. So we had a great big yellow cake for her and cupcakes last year at CCEC. She's just an amazing lady who brings so much to our nation and so reliable. She's actually our senior bus driver. So she's in charge of the other drivers, Avery Tanner, Dennis Buckles, Mitch Redwood, and we have a couple of casual drivers as well, Matt Bednarchuk and Joanne Buckles. Feather Pewapaskonius is our education consultant, and she's here tonight. So give a wave there, Feather. She's been instrumental in helping with achievement, pulling together our results, instructional practices at CCEC. So she's been very busy. And of course, there's me. So I oversee and have been building capacity with this fine group of people. And of course, behind the team of CCEC is 35 staff, which 18 teachers and a number of support staff. Ruby was here earlier. She's also instrumental to CCEC. So it's a big team, almost 60 of us, as well as the daycare, which we have 5 other employees there. So it's a big staff. This is just a quick snapshot. We have only 2 3-year-olds. They have to be potty trained before they come to Head Start. So there are a few still going to reach that milestone, but we do have 10 pre-K, so they're preparing for kindergarten. And we have 24. We have a 23 spot daycare, but we have 24 children in there and 2 drop-ins. And we have 203 students at CCEC, and we have 6 graduates in June. So we've seen those numbers fluctuate between 6 to 12. I believe last year we had 13. That was one of our largest classes. So that's kind of those are our statistics. Post-secondary education, of course, we're proud of all the graduates from Cowessess. So the perennial issue is always, we have limited funding, but we're able to have at least 60 to 70 students that are sponsored. We always have way more applications than we do money. We wish we had more money for that. 62 continuing students, 1 student in category 2. So yeah, well, I won't get into the details of the post-secondary policy, but that's the category that we place them in according to how, what step they're at in their degree or certificate. And we have 9 part-time students, and we have students that returned from leave. We received 97 applications. Spring 2024, we do sponsor students if they're very close to graduating. And so we have 9 sponsored students. And this year we have 5 potential grads in June, but there are 5 potential more. It just depends. If they finish in December, they would graduate the next year. So that gives a little bit of a snapshot. There's so much more I could tell you about education. And, we have been looking to land-based. We've revitalized the Cree language in our school. There's a lot going on. I could talk for a long time, but I won't do that. There is a lot. And I know after we meet with the committee, they'll have a lot of information to absorb. And we already kind of have a work plan in place. All of our policies are written. The policies have not been updated since CCEC opened, and that was in 2002. So quite a bit of the work that we've done in the last 5 years, we've put the fun in policy. It's we tried. It's a lot of work. And so I know that you guys, I can tell, are excited about policy. That'll be what what we'll be looking at, and of course, enhancing the services that we give to CCEC. I have to say, and I'm just putting this out there, we do have exceptional services at CCEC: speech and language, occupational therapy. We have mental health and wellness supports, which have been required before COVID, but they're even more urgent after COVID. So, and thanks to Jordan's principal and other funding sources, we've been able to provide a top-notch education that I'm, very proud of, in this whole team and the committee. I know when you find out all the information, you'll be not surprised, but you'll be very proud of our system. So thank you. Thank you. Good to see everyone.
So where are we going? And this, once again, is just talking about the people who will be your voice, and also the ones that lead us in how we move forward in education or learning. So before we go to that, what I would like to do, our facilitator, Terrence, if I know that he wanted to make some comments about education before we continue on and start asking questions.
It's coming up. I think it reflects back on where we came from before we come to the reserve, okay? And then I just wanted to address that, but keeping that in mind, as we go through where we're at today, at the end of the end slide for questioning, how do we want to go back and reinvent those, or bring those values back, bring those ways of knowing and living back to this present generation? So as you go through the presentations, keep that in mind, because that's what we want to look at. And like many of us here, we're the older crew, and we've all gone to residential school right here at Cowessess. We only went up to grade 8. The council, some of the council, if you looked at the committee, Josh, quite proud of him, his dad, or your brother Larson, right? That's your relative. Yeah, we went to residential school along with everybody else. Curtis's dad, Dwayne, we were all in the same grade. Lois taught my son grade 3. And Malcolm, we were born in the last century, Malcolm and I, in the middle of the last century. And we both went to residential school here. We were both in the same dorm, in the same classes all the way through, right up to grade 8. The 2 young ones, I have no idea. I just knew Terrence. I keep calling him his dad, right? And Loretta, of course, and my auntie Peggy, we were in high school together, believe it or not, in Calgary. It was a different experience. lot different times. But she's also looked after my grandchildren in daycare, and I'm really proud of that. So, and Head Start, yeah, that's right. And so they learned really good things there. So the presentation tonight is that's where we're coming from, okay? And what we're doing, I don't know any more than anybody else about what's going on in the reserve, and that doesn't matter, because I'm interested in where we're going, okay? And I have a lot of faith in people here, and I see the generations are working. I know when we're thinking about the past and how we want to bring that back up. Clarice, my friend, my colleague, She's working on some of that stuff. We're having meetings on Saturday and speaking with the knowledge keepers, not just the old people, but how do we going to bring that back, not just into the school system, but in our lives? And we learn when we go to the university, I don't want to talk too much about that, but we learn about our culture, how we came here. And if you think about it, everybody that lives on the plains, it goes almost from Prince Albert right down to Texas. And the plains is from about Winnipeg all the way to the prairies, okay? Everybody from up there, down there, we have the same sort of a culture. We might have different languages, but our languages describe the land, describe the environment, the trees, the fish, the birds. And that's what it describes in the different languages that we have. We have the same lifeways. We have the same sort of ceremony. And it all comes from the land. Our languages describe all that. And our cultures. And if you think about it, when we talk about the good life, is how are we going to have our children experience the good life? And we don't know all of the stories in the past, but they are written. Some of them are written and we have to follow them. Danny Musqua, for one. I believe it, the other lady is Madeline Anderson. They wrote about the good life and how and what the different training and education and the values that we had to learn in the different stages of our life. Danny Musqua, for one thing, the 7 fires. Our children right now are in the first fire. You must learn these things, okay? And I'll tell you a little bit about the youth because they're kind of important. You know, we had our territories that we defended. We had our languages that identified us. We had our colors. We had our societies, our warrior society. Everybody had something. And if you think about it today, gangs have the same thing. They have their territories to defend. They have their own unique languages, their dress, their colors. And so, you know, it's sort of it's wrecked. Our culture got wrecked. So as you think about what we're doing here today, how are we going to bring those back? And when I can tell you for sure, what I think indigenous knowledge is, indigenous ways of life. It's an ethic. You don't learn that on the golf course. You don't learn it in books. You live it. You have to live it, okay? And unfortunately, it took me about 68 years to learn that. So I'll let you go. We'll go on with the next slide, and we're going to ask you the question.
Counselors, are you wanting just to go down the line here in facilitating the questions? Okay.
15 people on the line, and we have how much present? Josh, did you count them up?
We have about 20.
20-some,
Yeah.
and 17, okay. And the way we're going to do it, if you have a question in the crowd, Brandon is going to facilitate the speakers down here. Again, come on up. You're not paying attention. Okay, and I'll do the ones online, okay? So we'll do, if you have a question, and the question is then. Take your note, share your ideas, and ask questions. We are all constantly learning in life. What does lifelong learning mean to you? You can leave it in the chat box or you can bring up your questioning here. So please do. Think about that question, bring up your ideas.
Any comments?
I just have a couple comments that are kind of, I would like to know if this current committee are going to look at their education policy concerning food-sec funding. Because food-sec funding is very important to our students. And we're poor, our students are poor, and as far as I know, the allowance didn't go up at all. Not for the last 25 years. Inflation went up high percentages, but our student allowance didn't. So I'm asking that this committee sit down and look at their policy and try upgrade to something decent for our students won't be so poor. Because it's hard being poor and trying to learn. You could never get your mind set on your studies when you're trying to think of how am I going to feed my kids. You know, you have to we have to upgrade these this post-sec allowance, and we have to do it soon because food sovereignty is getting hard for our people, for our young people. So that was my first question. Second question is, I noticed at our school that we have a lot of special need children, autistic and other mental incapabilities in some of our students. And we do not have trained teachers' aides to specifically look after autism. We need to get a course on Cowessess here to train teachers' aides to specify in autism and other disabilities of our kids have. I'm sure that we could somehow or another speak with some agency that can bring out a training for teachers' aides to train our people for autism. Because I think if we did it here, it'd be more students coming from the 4 First Nations that all need autism training or training. And I don't like how they do it here because I have two grandchildren autism. One is a low spectrum. My Cohen, he's verbal. And then I was so disappointed when I heard that they put him in a little room there with all the non-verbals. And he sings, he talks, and he sings lots. And if he's with non-verbals, how is he going to learn? All they do is put him in this little room. How is he going to socialize and know to communicate with the other little kids that have autism? There's different spectrums of autism, and our teachers and our teachers aides should be qualified to teach every spectrum there is. Because some of them are non-verbal, some of them are verbal, and who is qualified here to find that thing that all of them have or excel in some issue in some sort? Who is here that's able to train and find out what each child is excellent at? You know, some are great artistic, some of them are great singers, some of them are great mathematicians, scientists, builders. We have to find and train some teachers to find out what these little autism children need and require to grow. You know, and I know of autism, one of my grandsons graduated high school. He's autistic, he's nonverbal, but he still graduated. You know, so I'm wondering, should we at Cowessess here find a program to train teachers' aides to specify with autism? Because each school has more than one student in these 4 First Nations. Some of them, 4 or 5 of them. And I'm sure that every school in the First Nations will benefit if we get a program going for teaching teachers' aides autism, how to deal with children with autism. That was what I wanted to say. So let's us find out if we can do that.
Okay.
And I promise I won't talk no more.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, thank you, Carol, for the question for the students and the student actually the post-secondary policy has been old and it has been updated for almost 30 years. So that's what we want to look into in this within the committee, and so we can help our students and help our kids do better and have a not worry about living and just focusing on their education. And when with the autistic part, yes, you're right. We do need people that come in here and that are trained that can help look after our kids that are complex. Me too. I have an autistic grandson, and when him too. He's a verbal guy, and you know it's something that our community has to educate ourselves within, and yes, so we do need some people to help us help our kids deal with their needs that they're going through. Thank you. Is that? Hopefully I answer your question.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And just as a supplement to Councillor Joshua, is that first of all, we absolutely agree with you about those for those who are lucky enough to get funding, that it's very hard for them to live on that funding. Once you leave the reserve, you know, it depends on what city you're at. In order to have a safe, livable place, you're looking at the very least, even for a single person, $1,000. If you're looking at kids, up to 4 kids, you're looking at about $2,500, and that's just rent alone. And so it'll be reflected in the education policy, but from the governance table, we recognize that. And what we're looking at as we move towards the settlement of our claim is prioritizing education and funding of students, not only at the bachelor's level, but also the master's and the PhD level, as well as those who are in the trades and different forms of education. And not only having everybody eligible for that funding, but also raising that funding, because we know that government will always fight government in order to have them fulfill their treaty obligation. But we also know that the reality is that we have to do that first in order to make sure that our people succeed. The second part of your question is that I have begun talks with SIT for teachers' aids programs, as well as home care aid programs for our nation. And those are the first 2 programs that we're looking at in bringing hopefully home to our nation within the next few months to a year.
Okay, good enough. We're gonna go to Louis as soon as I get the comments online here. As soon as I can find my glasses to see. Comments. Lifelong learning never stops. It's up to you how you treat others and respect others. And it's more important to respect ourselves as individuals. Lifelong learning again. Lifelong learning. You were talking about that. And to be humble, to know I know family and learning helps each other because we are all dealing with our own individual traumas. An insight into each other's traumas and how we deal with someone else in their life helps to help people involved in these. How do we get people more involved in these values is my question. And I guess somebody else brought up the 7 grandfathers' teachings. And maybe how could we get more involved in these in these lives? I think, well, I didn't want to bring up Clarice, but she's part of that crowd of doing that culture stuff. And that's where we're talking about it on Saturdays, I believe. Yes. So she has a group going, and that's how we're trying to bring back some of what our teachings are. We'll go back to Louis. Oh, Clarice, sorry, and then Louis. Louis in the back.
Really didn't have anything, but I'm gonna add, I'm trained in inclusive ed, and I'm just gonna suggest and put it out there that inclusive ed is a program that helps you understand students with needs. And as a teacher, I knew I couldn't help those with exceptionalities and needs that are in our classrooms every day. And so there's a program called Continuing Education through the University of Regina, and actually no, Nicole's taken it too. It's called Inclusive Ed, and it's additional to your teaching degree, but taking that has been vital in understanding all of our Indigenous children and their needs. And so my suggestion would be to support any of our teachers that may want to take that program, because it's helped me as a teacher and as a person to understand inclusive ed and how do we include our students with needs in our community and in the school. I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I got a question here. I'm not going to name any names, but I know of a specific person who's got training, who went to school for this autistic thing, yet they're not working at our school. Why is that? Why is this person not helping educate our autistic little ones when they are fully qualified and went to school for that, and yet they can't get a job at the school. What the heck's going on?
I guess it's a hiring issue. I don't know what his question is. He's suggesting that there's some people in the community that might be working at the school. I don't know, or should be.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Lou. And I guess the short answer is, first of all, I don't know the situation, and I don't think that we know the situation that you're talking about, because we're not involved in the hiring. But absolutely, that's what we are committed to doing, is ensuring that the people that are trained in the area, we want to bring our people home and to teach and to do, what they're educated in. So I can't answer you specifically, and I know that this isn't going to satisfy your answer, or what you would like to have answered, but due to privacy and confidentiality, and like I said, I have no idea of the person you're speaking of. Is that something that we can talk about later on together offline?
Got a question online that is kind of important. It deals with the same sort of issue that Carol brought up. It's a teacher training. They're suggesting that there should be more teacher training. We bring in another crew, like we did in 1970s, I believe. When was that? 80s, when we brought in the 80s crew. We brought in the 80s crew. And they're suggesting that teaching trainers as well, preparing for the future, and that we have it right here in the community. Good enough? All right. Another one? Oh, they said the tuition will be raised as well due to rising costs 3 or 4 years as well. It would be awesome to see trades as well brought in, such as electrical and plumbing. And I was asking Barry about that. He's under CVL, right? And he does a pretty good job. There's quite a bit of stuff happening over there. But Barry, I guess he's under a different heading, CVL, and he'll be there, because I asked him the same question. Okay, I think he'll have a very good. Oh, and the tuitions as well. They're going to be raised. So. All right, Stephanie now, right down there.
Good evening. One of my ideas, and I'm just going to throw it out there, is, how about we start including our families in growing a garden? One student can take on tomatoes, one student can take on potatoes, one student can go, and then they could learn a barter system later on. I think that kind of helps our autistic children. That's something that they would love to do. It helps a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things. I went to school to become an EA. I was part of Barry's program. There was 9 of us that graduated. We learned a lot of stuff. The reason I took it is because I have 2 special needs grandchildren. And I needed to make myself aware, and I needed to make myself educated on how to help them grow. So that's why I took it upon myself. But back to my idea of the gardening, I think something like that would help our nation grow and become closer together with our kids. They learn to work together. They learn to do stuff. They learn to barter. They learn to share. They learn to ask each other questions on what's going to work for the next, for their crop. We're building farmers later on. It's something that we need to do, and we need to push forward. And, there's a lot, like I said last night, there's a lot of people out here that have ideas that we're not being heard. How are we all going to be listened to if we're not going to be able to stand up and talk? Thank goodness I found my voice, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sure.
Good evening again. I sitting here listening, and I told the chief, when I get a hold of the mic, I'm going to call a smoke break. But anyway, you know, I think as a new committee, we're all sitting here listening and taking in the suggestions, you know, and I think we all know that post-secondary students are underfunded, and that's something we've talked about in the chief and council chambers, you know, and I feel that now that we have a committee going here, I think things are going to move a little faster and a little easier, you know, but we hear you, and you know, that woman that stays at my house, she just loves these children that we're talking about, you know. So we do expect something to happen in time here, but like I said, with the new committee here, and we're sitting here listening, and you know, and getting back to Louis about people not being hired and blah blah blah, you know, we don't know about that stuff, you know. There's either reasoning whoever he or she was didn't apply, or there was something else why they're not there. So, you know, we sit up here and we treat everybody as fair as we can. With that, I don't know if you want to smoke break, but I'm going for like
Hang on. We only started an hour ago. But Stephanie had a very good comment, and I think that's why we're here. We're here to hear the voice. And you were right. Nobody's here that heard us for a long time. And so thank you for hearing us. And I guess Louis is going to say one more thing.
Two more things. Anyway, back in the day, we've never really heard about autism, but now today, everybody knows a little kid who is autistic. You know, it must be something in the food or whatever. I got a grandchild who's 4 years old who's a little autistic guy. He's a little outgoing guy, but he does things on his own all the time. But I really, really believe that we need to get more people educated, more people trained for these autistic little ones, because they are the future. And you know, what's going to happen if we don't get nobody to train them? They're going to grow up to be whatever, you know. And I really feel for these little guys, because not because they're special, because, you know, every kid deserves to be a little child and have fun and interact with other children their age, and, you know, just be kids. But little autistic kids, they all have their own different little personality, you know. So we need more training in there, and more educated people to get into there with these kids. You know, there's a lot of kids out there without autistic, but the autistic kids are the ones that we really, really have to work with. That's all I have to say. I'm done for the night. I'm grabbing some pizza, and we'll see ya.
Wonder if I could bother you for your land-based training stuff. Okay. He wasn't really up here, but I'm going to ask him to do land-based training.
This could take a while.
Hello, everyone. I'm Councillor Terry Lara, resident councillor on our First Nation, and I take education very seriously. I believe, it's my honest belief, it is a fact that without our band membership, individual membership, and without our land, we wouldn't be a First Nation, and we wouldn't have a First Nation reservation. Wouldn't have an area to work with. We have to utilize both of the areas. We have to use our population and our land base to further educate ourselves. And that's been one of my passions for quite a number of years. I am working hard to bring agriculture in the classroom. I've also found funding to build a greenhouse, and it's my dream to build a greenhouse in conjunction with our school, with our CCEC school, to get our students right from grade 1, right from nursery, growing vegetables for their own lunch program. I believe that could happen. I don't want to say too much about my other project, but I'll tell you, come to the land come to our lands engagement session here at the end of the month, April 25th, and I'm going to have quite a bit to tell you. An exciting new thing we got going here, I got going, to address your gardening issues, to address anything with food sovereignty, anything with food production. That's where I can't say too much until, I don't want to say too much until then, but something pretty exciting is coming up here, and we'll bring it forward. This is education. It's not agriculture. I'm all agriculture here. I really appreciate all the teachers, all the educators, all the school bus drivers, assisting in education, been in my family, our family, for as long as I remember. Like my dad started driving bus in 1960, hauling kids to school here. Went on to my wife being a teacher for 40 years. You know, when you look at the number of kids she taught throughout her 40 years, I do a rough estimate here. If she taught 25 kids a day for 200 school days a year for 40 years, that's about 200,000 kid teacher days. Really, you know, that's the way I look at things. I'm not going to try estimate Lewis's. She's got a little bit more than Darlene, not a whole lot. I have to say I'm proud to be standing here behind my grandson. He's kind of carrying on a tradition of helping educate our population. But my big thing is agriculture. If I can get agriculture in the classroom, if I get food sovereignty going, I think I've done something in my lifetime to help this First Nation. And I'm that far away from achieving that, but I'll talk to that at the end of the month. Thank you.
Okay, good enough. You have a couple more comments here. The one here is, geez, I have 2 pairs of glasses. Oh, yes. Community space that was brought up before. We don't have enough space for people. Like we have other people that could be involved in different ways, as Stephanie and other people were saying. They have bring special skills, special gifts to the community, and if they're able to share them. Somebody brought up beading. That's sort of a cultural thing, you know. If we had space for those types of things for people to come out now, we don't have space. We know, but I'll just have Josh have a say at some stuff here.
Oh yeah, sorry, I have a question here from Brandy. Can the school bring back EAs in the classrooms, IAs in and home economics that would greatly change some of the children's attitudes and get their minds back on track, or teach them more than what they know, more than they want more in the future? So that's Brandy's question. Anybody want to? Okay.
All right. Okay. Good questions brought up and good discussion. I just want to back up and Carol, you brought up post-secondary funding and the living allowance. So we did update our policy in, I think that was 2018. So it was updated. And at that time, the committee we went through, we did a lot of number crunching because we know the living allowance has been dismal for the past however many years. And when we started crunching the numbers, and I think at that time we had about $1.2 million, most of that goes towards students. And what we found out was we either have a choice between funding less better or funding more less, right? So that was the big light bulb moment for us, because we actually crunched the numbers. We looked at, okay, if we raise the living allowance to $1,400 or $1,500, you know, do we go to a flat rate? Do we, you know, we looked at all kinds of scenarios. In the end, I think it worked out to about 50 kids funded well. So that's the fundamental question. Do we fund less, better, or fund more and like stay at where we're at? And we know for sure that we can't stay where we're at. When I went to university, it was $632. And that was a long time ago. So 1,000 isn't much more. I know that is the first priority we have, is to update our post-secondary policy, because there's a lot of gaps there in terms of learning supports for university students as well. We have We have some students who require supports in learning. And so post-secondary, because of the, we have some surpluses and now our priority is to raise the living allowance. So that's what we're going to be looking at, and plus updating the policy because there's a lot of other areas. It didn't seem that long ago, but it is a long time ago since we updated. The second question you had about autistic children, I think we've been able to, in general, society is learning more about autistic and the special gifts that they bring because they have special gifts. At the school, we have a support classroom because autism is on a social spectrum and it can range, as we all know, like, you know, you can have nonverbal, you can have verbal, you can have, so what we've done is we've supported a small group of students in order for them to build, how shall I say it, build some stamina and being able to be in their classroom longer because I'll just use an example, like, you know, some students cannot concentrate when they're around a lot of kids. So we're building the skills for students. So we have a support teacher who is helping them build social skills, self-regulation is also a really critical piece. Teaching the kids the tools for themselves to be able to manage in the classroom, because the ultimate goal is to get them into the classroom regularly, build their social skills, build relationships with their peers. And we know that like autism can look at many different things. So the skill set for that is critical. And we do have some teachers who've taken autistic training. I know the EAs in the programs have taken autism training. I think actually as a community, we all need to understand that better, like families as well as people who work with kids. So that's what I'll say about that. And then I forgot the third question. What was the third? Okay, but there was one other. Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we call it PAA now, which is practical arts and practical arts applied at Thank you. Thank you. And so we do offer beading. We do offer food studies in the high school. We know that PAA is a critical hands-on learning opportunity. I want to say that in the next year, we do have some surplus dollars only because of COVID and we weren't running buses and there was a lot of other things. That is one of our priorities. We have to update the PAA lab. Like it's so old. I don't even know how old. I don't know. There are like power machines in there, but it does need to be updated. So we're looking at a refresh of that as well as bringing in a PAA teacher. So yeah, it's on our radar. It's coming.
We have a comment here online. I got to switch glasses again. But he's thanking Stephanie for the idea of the garden. He says that if you could incorporate a class for kids to take care of an individual garden vegetable in the garden. Another step would be to become self-sufficient through growing our own food. And where we could have a community event every once in a while, eating our own food. Also to have food hampers brought out with our own food. Between the grades 7 and 12. And he's just saying, good idea, good idea. That's good ideas to teach our kids. Now, I know some people are dying for a smoke, so I guess we'll call it quits right here. Okay, for now, we'll go keep on going right after we have a smoke, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, this is the other question. Think about it. What would you like to see for lifelong learning opportunities, regardless of age? Good enough? Good enough. I have about 3 more slides to go to with questions, but they all sort of relate to the same thing. And I'll go over them with you now. We talked about it a lot already. We talk about lifelong learning, and we got some ideas from you. The next one then would be on there related to lifelong learning. Lifelong learning related to regardless of age, which was us seniors. And I think I sort of went over that when we went for our Edmonton trip. And it wasn't a trip where we just went to the casino or to Las Vegas. We did other stuff, and we talked with a lot of other seniors, a lot of other knowledge keepers. We went into workshops where we learned what people were doing from other parts of Canada. And I think they're having one more session again this year. But it was a really good time to get together and visit, not just with our people, our neighbors, but with other people from other parts of Canada as well, to see where everybody's going. And it was really exciting because everybody's sort of moving in the same direction. Everything is kind of positive now. That's so different. And when we were talking about facilities, lack of facilities, and you're talking about IA, and they said we have this little IA shop over there, fine. If you looked at the oldest building over here, right beside the golf course, the graveyard, sorry. That old ugly building, the one that's left standing, that was our IA shop. And to tell you the truth, there wasn't some very good stuff going on in there. So probably when you got rid of it, then it'll be the last thing that would be representing our old system. Okay, so that's just a suggestion. Lifelong learning related to age. If you have anything related to that, next one is up here. Is again, differently abled students, which was what we were talking about, the ones that have special needs, young adults, young people, adults, and seniors. Let's try again, move up to the next one. And then how can we support children, youth, adult, seniors who are differently abled? Now, I don't know if you have any ideas about those, and I'll leave that to the chief and the committee if they have any ideas about that. Is that the last slide for questions? Okay, what was the last one? Is it still the same? And how can we support the families from the birth of their children with critical thinking, observing, and other essential skills that will assist when they get school age and beyond? So those are kind of some general questions. First one's related to lifelong learning. How can we meet the needs of our different age groups here? Anybody from committee want to talk about that? Can you do anything for us seniors and then go back to the youth?
I think that seniors can learn from each other when we have our gatherings. There's a lot of things that I never learned when I was growing up. So some senior might know something that I don't know. But when we were growing up, we lived on a farm and we lived close to nature. So everything that we learned was from there. And as concerning the thinking, observing, well, the parents showed us how to do all that. So is it up to us, the seniors, to show the children how to do that now? Or is it up to the parents? Like, just a question that I always ask myself, where are the parents in this place, you know? They should be educating their children as well as at a school. You know, they have a right to do that, and that's their job, I guess you can say. You know, if you bring a child into this world, you are responsible for that child, not only to clothe them, to give them food, but to also educate them. And that's up to you, as well as the teachers that are went to school for that. But you teach them natural things that are around them. The other thing is other essential skills. I know that there are people that have skills. They tell us that we have 8 intelligences, and we don't just key in on the IQ of one person. We look at all what they're good at. There's 8 of them that we were taught when we went to university. You don't just key in on math or reading. You also look at the arts. You also look at phys ed, because there's a lot of people that are skilled in different areas, and you have to look at that when you have a classroom. And the children's their interests, their skills, and what they like doing, their enjoyment of what they like to do. school age, well, of course, every day a teacher has that child longer than you have them when they're awake. So you can teach them something when they're sleeping, but the time that the teacher has a student or a child from your family is very important. So those teachers have to be well equipped to deal with anybody in their classroom. And that's what we were taught, you know. And then when I first started teaching, I didn't know a darn thing about teaching, so I had to learn on my own. Nobody was there to show me how, and it took me 2-3 years to get into my stride and how I was going to be teaching. And I had to learn that on my own. So each teacher should be going through that, knowing how to handle different children in your classroom, because not everybody is the same. And beyond school, I guess, if you taught those children well, and if you gave them a good base of that education that they're supposed to be following, then beyond that, they should be able to go out, have a life of their own, and teach their own children. So it's just kind of like, what do you say, dominoes? So you have to have that child well educated in not only school, but also in the natural life that they're going to be living in. And that's it for me. Thank you for listening.
Good one. Anybody else on the committee? I got some good comments on online here. Coming from George. Lifelong learning would be a language like Soto, Cree. We have a consistent teacher for each language, year-round, and language learners as well. Would be awesome to put a stop sign in Cree and Soto and stuff like that around the reserve. Got it? Our signs, our public signs. All right. Next one from Denise. We need opportunities to learn and be committed to learning. We need people with the want to get a job or go to school. We need to stop the handouts and give hands up. The addictions in the cities and the communities are hard, and how is support given if the support is not accepted? There are successes, thankfully, and how can support be given after treatment? We're going to have people like that, and therapy to continue with life. Pimatsuin. I don't know what that means, but sounds pretty good. It means life. All right, Kelly, she says, Cowessess and CCE do a lot for cultural programming, and thank you for that. Just continue and add more activities. Because of the lifestyle challenges, we need more specialized teacher supports in the classroom. Anybody else on the home territory here? As we're kind of running out of questions on the lifelong learning. Darlene, can we get Darlene, please? Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to share some of my experiences. Like my husband said, I was in a classroom for 40 years. And I had many, many different types of students in my room. And some of them, of course, they're frustrated. They fought me, they hit me, they kicked me, they pinched me because they're frustrated. And so with a child like that, I would just say, whoa, no academics here. I'm first going to win that child over. I'm going to show this child that they're worthy of something. They're important. I love them. I'm here to help them. You know, and love is a big thing that's missing in our culture right now because of residential school. I'm the 3rd generation residential school survivor. And that's 3 generations of the parent skills that were destroyed because they were trying to get us down. And they were really smart because taking parenting skills away was very effective. And unfortunately, it lives today really strong. a lot of our young people, even our older people, they don't know how to parent. And so as an educator and working with many, many different students, it helped me become a better parent, a better grandparent, a better great-grandparent. Because now, today, there isn't one time that I will say goodbye to one of my kids, one of my grandchildren, one of my great-grandchildren, without saying, see you later, love you. And they say it back to me. And when I see them and we give a big hug, and it's not just a hug that means something. I let them know that I love them, that they're important. And we have to treat our students the same way. You get these students in your room and you have them for 200 days a year. And you have to develop that little person. And that's so important. Because once they learn to love themselves, then they're open to all kinds of things. You can make them stand on their heads. You know, you can teach them to read, do math. And I always hug my students. There was a time they said, no, you can't touch your students. And I've always disagreed with that. I've always hugged my students, every one of them. I've always put them on my knee because I always had elementary kids. I put them on my knee, I talk to them, I rub their back, I pat their head. And if they're really, really upset, I keep them right here beside me. I hold their hand while I'm teaching. And that seems to just calm them and they're not acting out. You have to be a parent. To be a good teacher, you have to be a parent. You have to love your students like your own. And that's so important. And that's one big thing that's missing in our society today. With all the years that I've taught students, that's the one thing that really stands out for me. Our kids are not loved enough. Okay? We don't know how to love our kids. That was taken away. We don't know how to tell them we love them. We don't know how to hold them and kiss them and tell them it's going to be okay. I know this probably hasn't got a lot to do with your questions today, but that's a passion that I have. That's what I've learned with my experience. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. When we're talking about going back to how our parents taught us, that's how it was. That's how it was. And we have too many restrictions on us now as educators, and we can't go back to how how we trained our kids. There's a good comment here from somebody. Two good comments. He says, once I find my glasses. Parents should, okay, did I talk to that? Oh yes, good one. Arnold Joseph. Parents should be responsible for the education and values of their children. We are not all so fortunate to have parents. I was grateful to be raised by my great-grandparents. My biological parents and grandparents were lost from their traumas and addictions. I am grateful for this community and family from Cowessess to help raise me. I find that saying it takes a community to raise a child, it is all our duty to set examples for our young ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I said, I think it would be interesting if the community would come up with a project to bring together elders and school students to learn how each other was brought up and obstacles to overcome. We are not also fortunate to have parents raise us. We as a community should learn off each other's strengths as well as shortcomings. Thank you very much. Thank you, Darlene. They said, good, that's good. I remember talking with Terry when our kids were young, and the most that we can offer as a community, if the least anyway, is guidance for our young people. sometimes we see the little young kids in there, and I'm a middle school years teacher, 7 to 9, and dealt with well, teenagers for most of my life, and you know, you just can't always you give them shit and yell at them. I remember my wife telling me when I was a chief, we don't go down at the school and yell at the kids again. But you know, but you offer them guidance in different ways, and people have different ways of talking to young people. And I remember talking with this fellow. He actually survived World War II, and he was a Holocaust survivor. And I was telling him when this one time I got fed up with the gangs, I guess, and the criminal, and I said they should throw them all in jail. And he says, no, 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 no. He says they're just kids, and he's right. They're just kids. They're just learning. And if they would have did that with me, you know, my grandparents, they put up a lot with us, and they put up a lot with a lot of us. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our grandparents. So I don't know if there's any more questions out there. That seems to be it for the online people. One more here. Is there anybody else out here? Comment?
All right. The one thing that I learned when I first came down to Cowessess to teach, I had a boy that was somewhat not really autistic, but he'd act out, and he was terribly ADHD. And I didn't have any clue on how to handle him. So one of the directors came to me and they said, you have to have a special program for this child. And at the time we were just doing we just had computers introduced into the school. And so what I did was I had an EA, and that EA was assigned specifically for that child. So what I would do is I gave him his own program, and he was able to read. So I would write it out every day, and I gave him 15, 20-minute periods to work. And then I'd give him a 5-minute break. And then he could do anything in that 5-minute break, and he'd walk around. And I told him specifically, you are not to disturb the class. You are not to talk to any of the children. And then after your break, 5 minutes, you'd go back down and you'd do the next section in your day plan. So we worked it like that. And this little boy, I can tell you, after about maybe it took him a couple days to learn how to do that. But see, that's the way a teacher has to accommodate those children. They have to figure out how to handle each and every one of those children that are having a hard time. So that's one of the things that I learned to listen to that director, because he had experience on how to handle those children. I didn't, because I was just new to teaching down here, and I had a hard time. This guy used to huck chairs at us and desks at us, and it was uncontrollable. So, and that's the way I handled him, and we had a good relationship after that. And every day, he was on a pill that he'd take every day, and I'd stand at the door and I'd greet the children coming in, and I'd ask him, are you going to be able to handle recess outside? And he'd look at me and he'd say, no, Mrs. Delorme, I can't, I don't think so. I think I'll get into trouble. And I'd say, okay, but if you stay in, you cannot bother anybody's stuff, and you have to be very, very respectful of everything in the classroom. And you know what? He was really coming along. So it depends on how a teacher handles their students, you know. Like, I'm not a parent, but I know how to handle kids because I had over 40 some years with children. And I always was a babysitter for my nieces and nephews. So everybody has a different way of handling their students, but that's what I learned. And I think we need those kind of people to come into our classrooms and help the teachers, because I'm sure a lot of the teachers don't know how to do those things, you know. So that's what I suggest, if that's all right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have one more comment online, and I don't know if there's anybody else out here. And this is another good comment. He says, working from a trauma-informed practice will give me an understanding that the intergenerational trauma hurt people. And I think one of the ideas with that is all of us, when we went to school here, when we went into grade 1, like it was traumatized. We were traumatized in 1960 when we went into grade 1. If you weren't traumatized before, well, you were when you went in. And you try learning grade 1 math from from the nuns, and it's hard, and you get traumatized like that. And when we're like that, then we grew up, and sometimes we display these things in our adult life, and it comes out with how we look after our kids. And so when it's saying intergenerational, a lot of these things are displayed in the trauma is displayed in the way we raise our children, and then the way they raise their children as well. So, those types of things are very unique to this generation. They're unique to this generation. I don't think that the next generation, I hope, will face similar issues if we deal with what we're talking about tonight. Caring for our kids in a really good way. Now, I don't know if there's any more questions out here. It doesn't look like there's any more comments online. Maybe we could bring in our draw now. You undo that and I'll give you. Okay, good, you go. Okay, I thought that was the last one. Okay, here we go. Are we done? This last slide here, eh? We have always had an education system in our relationship with creation. How do we reawaken, that traditional knowledge in a modern context? That's a very good question. Then take a stab at it. Yeah. Because I sort of want to. Yeah, okay. Good.
Well, I really wanted to hear from everyone before I spoke, but I've been a teacher for 18 years in many capacities within public schools and First Nation schools. I've taken those programs to understand our students with needs, and I almost went down an avenue to label our children. And from working in First Nation schools, looking at our children, I was really overwhelmed, and I thought, well, all of us carry some form of trauma. So every child would be labeled. And so I didn't go down that avenue to become a psychologist and label our children in our schools. I went to school and I studied how to work with our children and integrate culture into our schools in a method that wouldn't have to label them, to create schools that are culturally sensitive and culturally responsive to the needs of our community and to the people. So I've been hired. If people don't know, if people don't know who I am, my name's Clarice Delorme Meaches. My father was the late George Chach Delorme, and my mom's Cook Eunice. I've been hired as cultural navigator, and I've been in this role for 4 or 5 months now. And I've been really building relationships. I'm from here. I went to residential school for 9 years. And so I share a little bit of a different perspective and experience when it comes to that experience of being in those schools. But I understand the trauma that we carry. And so the work that I'm doing with cultural revitalization and reawakening our culture, it's very sensitive and very, for me, spiritual work to revitalize and to reawaken this community. We have many different beliefs, but deep down we are Cree, Soto, and many other things, not things, I shouldn't say creatures. We carry First Nation DNA. That's who we are. And so I've been really mindful. I've been sitting with our older ones, knowledge keepers. When I say older ones, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean to say those that are older than me, because you carry a form of knowledge and experience that I don't have, and I respect that. And so I've been sitting with the older ones, the youth, in private, safe spaces. And when I say that, we are not documenting right now because they need to trust me and feel safe to do their own inner work so we can reawaken some of these things that we want to do in our community. And so that's where we're at right now. We have a lot of other things happening. We're hoping to, I use the older ones as a form of advisory because culture needs to come from those who have lived experiences and have those knowledge in our community. And so I'm seeking knowledge from our older ones, the youth. We're going to have community engagements for what culture even looks like in our community. Who are we? We are all struggling to know who we are because of the residential school that was in this community. We've also created, I don't know if I'm just spilling all the, but I don't know if there's going to be a better time than now because culture, education, programming needs to be infused with culture because that's who we are. And so we've created also what's called a culture unit within the departments, within the nation. We sit and make decisions as a team, as a group, when it comes to, well, what avenue should we go? And I'm called a cultural navigator because we're navigating through something that's never been done before. And so we have a cultural unit. A large area is education. We have Feather, we have Andrew, and we have different teachers that share, that have so much cultural knowledge that often come into the meetings. And anyone is actually open to come to the meetings. Health has a person that comes in and we have conversations. But all of that is just a voice along with our older ones, our youth, because we're navigating through reawakening things. We can't just bring in ceremonies without being mindful and respectful. And so we're having they're hard conversations. One of the big areas that we're working on right now, well, I'm putting out there and we're discussing as a group, and we'll discuss as a community engagement. I have a community engagement booked for the whole community, similar to this, is collecting knowledge. We're going to come into every single home and hear from you. That's how we're going to keep moving forward. Every single home. We have a survey. We're going to be doing a survey, a list of questions. What is culture? I have a whole presentation on culture. Culture is language. Culture is religion and beliefs. Whatever religion you follow, that's what makes who we are. Some follow spirituality, some follow the church. That's who we are as a nation. There's the land, food sovereignty, huge. These should be infused into our curriculum in our schools. And so that's the route that we're hoping to go. Who do we have in our community that can do these things? So we're going to go into the homes, have those conversations. Who can teach those things for us? Going back historically to those customs and beliefs of a nation, takes a nation to raise our children. We're going back to that method, I'm hoping, and then we'll bring in people into the schools that can teach some of those things. And going back to, yes, it's going to take a whole community, not just the parents. I struggle as a parent because we weren't loved the way we should have been. And I think having conversations in safe places like this is how we're going to move forward and then to reawaken our culture, but it has to be in a respectful manner, in a safe place where there's no lateral violence and criticism. We're moving in a direction where, there's no silly questions. Well, what do we need to do for our children? It's the babies that we're thinking about. And so we're collecting what's called a knowledge inventory. And I'm hoping that it will influence the curriculums in the schools. Break away from that Western structure, the white man way of doing things. Yes, we're going to need to balance. Yes, we're going to need those core teachings. But without my culture, I wouldn't have my identity and I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do in this world to be successful. And so we have a couple of projects that are happening. I was sharing with Lois. And in my beliefs and customs and First Nations culture, we honor our older ones. And so that's another project that we'll be kicking off right away as elder stories, going into each family and each home and finding who are the older ones in your family and acknowledging them. You go into other communities, you go into the band office, Cowessess, and they have a whole wall for their elders. So doing some of those, bringing back those types of things for our people again, and showing our young ones that we need to value those customs and beliefs. And I don't know what they are. We are going to decide. We are going to come up with a strategic plan, a cultural awakening plan as a whole nation. That's all I have for you right now. Thanks.
The comment after that presentation was, thank you very much, Clarice. Thank you. And I think that was what the sort of a question was. And the other comment that we have to bring back some of our creation stories. And because part of it, what we are, we're a custom band, sorry. And we need to bring back some of our creation stories and our own stories. And we can't have custom unless we know what the story is. And so when we're getting together, that's why I asked Clarice. She's sort of wrapping up some of our stories and gathering some of our cultural themes there. And I'll ask Feather, you put up your hand. Go ahead.
I was trying to be shy. So I work as the education consultant for those who haven't met me or seen me before. I'm not originally from Cowessess. I'm from Little Pine originally, but when I came into the school, it's been a really good way for me to learn how the school system works here, and then working with students with high needs and diverse needs. But one of the things that I'm passionate about, that was really one of my my skills that I got to come into here with, was doing culture, language, and land-based learning within the school. And so it's really, I know a lot of teachers, the struggle where they have with land-based learning is kind of what Clarice is talking about, is not knowing where to go, not knowing who to talk to, not knowing who to bring into the classrooms for these different learnings. So I'm doing my best so that when like teachers bring me, I'm working with the K to 12. So I might have like a grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 teacher come up to me being like, I'm teaching about geology. How would I be able to incorporate FNIM content into this? So in those aspects, my job is kind of to help navigate teachers into the curriculum, but also be able to incorporate indigenous ways of knowing. So I've kind of had my experience because I was a Cree bilingual teacher for 4 years, and then I was a land-based teacher for OCHAP for a short amount of time there, and then just on my upbringing up north and stuff. So it's kind of been nice because within the school, I'm able to embed those teachings with the teachers as well. When we talk about how do we reawaken this knowledge, I also talk about with the teachers, we're doing a lot of trauma-informed education, which we brought up earlier. So we had a couple of teachers that actually attended a workshop a couple months ago, 2 months ago, I'd say. So we got a lot of skills and knowledge for that. And then within my position as well, so I ordered a lot of stuff for the school so that we can do differentiated learning, adaptive learning. So that might be me going to the classrooms, helping teachers with, okay, well, maybe we need to do flexible seating in the classroom. Maybe we need to do natural lighting in the classrooms, figuring out ways of how we can incorporate our own ways of teaching into the classroom. Because a lot of times sitting in these desks, it's kind of what you were talking about earlier, is a lot of people's experience was trauma. And so when we come from a trauma-informed place, you're meeting these children's needs in all 4 aspects of who they are. And kind of exactly what you're saying earlier is Mio Bamatsuin, it's you're looking at them physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. If you're meeting all these needs of this child, you kind of get them out of that survivor mode brain. So when you can come into the classroom and you show them that love, like you were speaking of, that part of their brain, which is in survival mode from that trauma that we don't even realize is there, it actually can calm down once all those needs are met in the school. So when you build those relationships with kids, which is almost something that I'm still teaching some of the teachers are supporting teachers in those ways, because it does get frustrating when you're having 30 kids and you may have half of them with high needs, right? You're putting out all these fires, but you have to teach the curriculum. So a lot of times we've also talked about how culture is a way of really meeting all the needs of our students, right? So if we're learning about ecosystems, maybe it's not pencil and paper where the kids have to read everything. Maybe it's taking your kids for a walk, right? And then we're teaching them how to do pond dippings. We're teaching them about, well, how did we teach this prior to colonization? And so we're kind of working at that right now. And I'm working with Clarice and the culture team as well, as trying to help our teachers in best support of how do we teach this then? They want to do it. It's really accessing the people, right? So, but that's kind of where I come from in helping with the teachers, is really how do we meet the needs of our kids in all 4 aspects of who they are, and make sure that they're good humans, right? So we're teaching values in the classrooms every month. We have a specific value that each classroom is to teach about. And within that too, we've created resource bins for each teacher to be able to teach these values as well. And so that's kind of where I've been in that area, is trying to make sure I meet the needs of those kids in those ways in the best way that we can so far. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Heather. This has been an incredibly informative as well as a heartwarming night. I've had a few tears along the way. Because our children, and it was Auntie Darlene that started it. It's that love. It's that love and taking us out of survival mode, whether or not we're children, teens, youth, adults, seniors, from birth until we become an ancestor. That love is the key. And when we talk about reawakening, us as a governance team, when we started, thank you, Auntie. Thank you for always loving me the way that you do. We felt immediately from all of our collective knowledge in our different walks of life as we sat around the table, how do we work about in the prevention, in intervention, in all of the violence that has become normalized in not only our lives as Cowessess, but in all of our lives as Indigenous people. And identity was immediately, if we know who we are, that's our war shield in order to prevent those addictions and all those things that we do to numb ourselves. All of the love that we seek in an early relationship, early parenthood, putting ourselves in vulnerable situations that we wouldn't, to become victimized. Many, many things, how to protect. And we looked at, well, we've never had a culture unit. We've had, and that was immediately talking to Clarice and it was like through our prayer that things would start coming and the people that we needed would start coming and the ideas. And this is part of it. Clarice, Bill, who is also works in language here and helping us out. All of the people that are in the culture unit and the integrated services model. Terrence and other people that are helping us with what our story was prior to even us as Cowessess people coming to this area to live and to make our home. It's the work that Dean Lara is doing with the DNA roadmap. This winter, when we went around to our off-reserve areas as well as on-reserve, having our ancestors sit and eat with us as we saw all of our ancestors with all of our last names, where we came from, sit with us and eat with us. Those little kids that we're talking about, if they can see that and see, that's my great Mushum, that's my great Kokum, that's where I come from. I see that I have the same eyes as that man, and start to have that connection. That is what we're talking about with that lifelong learning, and what our commitment is to support children in excellence and youth in excellence so that they could survive in both worlds and exceed and excel in whatever they choose to do. But in order to do that, we all need that identity, that love amongst each other, that love, and to be able to show that love. And it's okay to have frustration, and it's okay to have those negative feelings, but it's in the way that we express them. And so for all of us as a community to stand up and say, we may have been raised to have violence normalized through our words, through our tongues, those tongues that we use as weapons if we don't use our fists. That in fact, what we do is use those as weapons of love and understanding and kindness, and how we're going to move forward so that our little ones, they don't know that. They know discipline. They know all those things that they need to know. But the tongues that we carry with that hatred and how we show each other, that we as a community are going to stand up and say, no more, because we know what it's like to have our spirits so hurt that some of us have ended our own lives with it through drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, other types of violence, ending our lives through suicide completion. And that is our commitment as your governance table, is to reawaken that and to go move forward together in the way that our ancestors want us to, and what we have heard through ceremony and through those initial teachings before that school over there, regardless of who ran it, nuns and supported by the government. That's part of our history, but that doesn't have to mean that it's part of our future. And so we're really proud of the work that we're doing. And we are committed to walking with all of us, because it doesn't matter what station we're at. We're all the same. We're all Cowessess, and we're going to get there together. And it's okay to love each other. It's also okay not to like each other, you know, but it's also in the way that we express that. And we will move forward together. And there's going to be hard conversations. There's going to be that debate, that discussion, and that's okay too, because that moves us forward together. So thank you all for sharing tonight and loving Cowessess and loving each other enough to participate, enough to sit on a committee, enough to put your name forward as council. Our staff, we couldn't do what we're doing without our staff and that commitment and that love. And it took us many decades to get to where we are today. And it's going to take many decades, but we've started that path and we're turning the tide. And that's what we hold on to, and that's what we're so proud of. So as your chief, as your niece, your daughter, your granddaughter, your cousin, your friend, your kin, thank you. Thank you for being here and listening tonight. And I'm going to hand it back to Terrence now.
Thank you, Chief. Very good words. I think there's some really good comments here to end it off. Probably to think about where we are. That's what we were talking about earlier. Where are we? Well, we have to think we're the generation that's older. We're going to be passing it on to the next generation. We're trying to raise this generation, the little kids. And if you think about it, when we were little kids, there was not a whole lot of thought about what we were doing back then. And the biggest challenge, or the biggest decision that was put to our parents is, are they going to send us to residential school? Are they going to prepare us to go out and meet the white world and not to be who we are on the reserve, because they didn't think being Indians was very good. So that then they were thinking about, how are we going to get them to live in a white way? Our job now is opposite. How are we going to bring them back into who we were before? before they come in and brought us all this trauma. And all of us were. And when we were brought up in our teenage years, there was a lot of things that happened back then. Not a lot of thought about about the teenagers that they were raising, and we had some very traumatic times all the way through. There's some good ideas here. I'll come up with well, bring up this last one here again. If we're asking how are we going to do it, okay? He's saying, I think traditional teachings could be done in modern day, where most of the things were discussed. He's saying we discussed a lot of that. A garden to bring back teachings to our kids at school to connect back to the land. Having a time at the school for elders and adults to speak to the kids about their upbringing and the obstacles that they have overcome. And teach them the 7 grandfather teachings, each individual's journey on practicing humility, bravery, honesty, wisdom, truth, respect, and love. I believe we should teach our children on self-care, to be kind to themselves, and learning to love others, to love themselves and be humble themselves, and that we will all never figure out everything. We need to learn to figure out how to take care of each other and heal together. I believe that it starts with the kids. We need to teach this kid to the kids so that they can inspire others around them to do a better job, to do better or good. And we would learn off them. It humbles us knowing we made same mistakes they have. It reminds us how they wanted help at this point in their young life. So those are good words. I guess it's the burden that we have now to take up that challenge, to bring back a lot of the things that we don't know, and to raise the kids in a lot better loving environment. And yes, we can have different ideas, but don't hate, okay? Don't hate. The opposite of hate is love. And that's what I learned after all of these years. Not sure if there's any more comments, but I think that was a good time to end it off. It's just about 9 o'clock now. About time we ended yesterday.